Thank you for that introduction, and I'm so pleased to be here in Fargo. I'm from Minnesota originally. I've never made my way completely up here before, but in getting to know both of my colleagues on the stage has been such a fantastic exemplification of what we do at the Aspen Institute and also what I have the privilege to do in the Sports and Society program where I work at the Aspen Institute, which is all about building healthy communities through sport and through physical activity. And I'm so excited to be up here with Rachel from North Dakota Special Olympics and Ryan from TNT to really look at how we can work to engage all kids in physical activity and sport, regardless of age or zip code or ability. So with that, I'm so glad to have you all here. And Ryan, I'd love to start with you on a little bit of the background of your program and at TNT Fitness and how you're teaching people and kids across the lifespan, but particularly from birth to 5, about physical movement, the importance of physical literacy, and why that matters for them.
Thank you. At TNT Kids Fitness and Gymnastics, we have programs from 6 weeks all the way through adulthood. And we've really focused on that birth to 5 because we've learned that that's the main point of brain development happens in those 5 years. And a lot of people look at us weird when we say we have gymnastics classes for 6-week-old babies. And it's a little interesting because you feel like they're so fragile and you want to hold them and coddle them. But really what we're trying to do with babies is work on joint mobility and teach them with parents manipulating the child in different ways to build that neurological brain pathways to understand and start those building blocks that they need to become creative, confident movers. And we continue that process as these babies become 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, crawling, walking, running, jumping, driving their parents crazy, whatever it may be, working on those movement skills and putting it towards real productive movement. And once they get to that locomotor stage of 3-4-year-olds, really looking at their physical development. And they're such a dependent child at that point that they rely on whomever it is to teach them. And a lot of people think movement happens naturally because we're all walking, we're not crawling. And it's partially true, but what can we do more intentfully to help progress that process? Once they get into elementary school, we know that sports kind of take over and they begin to play basketball or do gymnastics or volleyball, or maybe they don't even do a sport. But what the foundation has hopefully developed is that they're ready for that new task, that new development. And once they get into adulthood, it's more just maintaining. And with our adult programming, with adults with special needs or even adults with Parkinson's, it's really about retaining the strength needed for vocation to happen. And what can they do, what can we help them do to continue that lifestyle that they're wanting, that they're able to have, and looking at their ability levels and what can we do to help that ability come to fruition, and our mission is to unlock potential through movement. So how can we help that throughout that lifespan?
And we've talked in some of our previous conversations about building on the abilities that people have at every stage of life. And that's such a great illustration of the importance of building that foundation, whether it's through gymnastics and that some kids will carry on through sports. And Rachel, I'd love to talk to you about how in Special Olympics, where physical literacy and movement is also so key and important, how is it that you design for development or roster and create age-appropriate play for your athletes, your partners, and your volunteers, depending on where they are in their abilities?
Yeah, so Special Olympics is primarily a sports organization, so we need to make sure that it's appropriate age-wise, for their ability-wise. And so we divide up our athletes in a few different ways. The first way is age. So we have a youth program, so that's 21 and younger. It's just appropriate developmentally wise, emotionally, physically, that they're in their own program besides the adults. And so adults are 22 until they want to stay with us. So from the age, we then divide up by ability. So we want to make sure that it's appropriate, that they are actually playing sports competitively. So they are assessed on each individual skill that they need to have for the sport that they're in, and it gets pretty detailed with each sport. So they get a score at the end, and we divide them up by teams, and the other counties do the same. And so the higher scoring athletes compete against the higher scoring athletes. And so it's the same level, and so it's not one team completely overriding and the other team trying to keep up with the others. It's even for the most part, and the athletes really work well together because they have the same skill set.
Right. And I'm wondering if you could expound upon that story that you were telling at dinner about when there were two teams that were a little mismatched in a Special Olympics tournament, and what one of those teams did to sort of match up with the other team they were playing against.
Yeah, so earlier this summer we had districts for soccer, and one of the teams was winning by quite a bit. So the winning team decided that they were going to do, passes. So they had to pass a certain number of times before they could shoot on the goal. So, building into, just trying to win and, making the most goals, they also had a goal of their own to, work on their skills, have teamwork, and then score.
I love that example of what that looks like. And
Yeah.
especially in a day and age where, according to the CDC, 24% of kids ages 6 to 17 are not getting the recommended 60 minutes a day of physical activity, having opportunities that they can access of being able to get into those programs is so vital for all kids, regardless of their ability. I'm wondering if we could stay on that access piece, because that's what we hear a key sticking point in the youth sports space so much of the time is, do you have access? Is the sport available where you are? Is it open and available for kids of all abilities? Is there transportation access to get you where you need to go? And I'm curious to see, both from you, Ryan, and then Rachel, how your programs acknowledge those barriers. How is it that you're working to sort of kick the doors down and ensure that all kids not only are able to participate in the programs, but also that parents are aware of them and empowered to utilize them too?
So at TNT, we've really been built on collaboration and working with partnering agencies, and we can't do it all, and other agencies can't do it all. But we know that coming together and finding pockets of individuals that may be in lower income state or special needs or some kind of emotional mental health needs, when we can reach out to those pockets of individuals through other agencies and figure out how do we work together to create programming for them. We have one facility right now in Fargo, and we know we can't reach every child, and it's about building that community around it to understand how do we work together to reach all populations. Not every parent has transportation, but if they're already going to a different after-school program or a different agency or a school, how do we connect it all together to bring it together to provide those opportunities, whether it's at TNT or TNT going to different events. It's just about building that collaboration and cohesiveness to bring our community together.
Mm-hmm. Right, or partnering with Special Olympics, as
Yes.
you were talking about
Yes.
earlier with cheer. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that, Rachel.
Yeah, so along with the collaboration that TNT does, we are 100% volunteer run. So we have volunteers from all different kinds of agencies, people in high school, people in colleges that need hours and then end up sticking around for years. Family members help out for decades. So we have a lot of people in a lot of different kinds of roles, and they reach a lot of people. And so we have programs that are in high schools, so they can go to Special Olympics events in high schools. We just wrapped up football this spring. We're looking to get into more Fargo schools this year, Fargo and West Fargo. And so that's kind of the goal right now, is to really build up the youth. And so just having that ready availability, you're already in school during the day, come check this out. We have partner sports, so people with disabilities and without disabilities play together on the same team and, grow that relationship, and people bring their friends, and then they they just keep coming back. And something that's really important to note is that our athletes don't have to pay for their involvement in Special Olympics. We, volunteer run, we are funded through donations. We have events like trivia night that come up. We have people that just donate monthly from the goodness of their heart. And so we get a lot from the community of Fargo and a lot from Moorhead too. We have Moorhead athletes that come over. If a program's not offered in their city, they can go to a different city. So we have people from, the surrounding areas who really support us. We have a lot of really wonderful volunteers that come event after event to support our athletes.
And what both of you are talking about in saying that you can't do it alone as an organization, it really sounds like you're building and you're part of an ecosystem in Fargo and in Moorhead, of course, in the surrounding area, about how to create those opportunities for kids. I'd love to hear, just dig a little deeper. You were starting to get there, Rachel, about what's the human impact of these kids that you're working with, and then Ryan, for you, anywhere on the spectrum but especially of getting started early. Because we talk about how people are less active than they used to be, and there's a myriad of reasons why that's the case, whether it's access, whether it's technology. But what is the impact of kids being able to get started early and being able to take those skills and build on them not only in other sports, but also in life and academics and relationships? How have you seen that play out in your work?
Yeah, we have a young athlete program, so they have to be 6 years old, so pretty young, and they get introduced to every single sport that we play. So they do 1 week at a time and see if they like it, and at the end they do a showcase of all of their skills. And to be a full-time athlete, you have to be 8 years old. So from 8 up until you're done with us, we have space for you. So there's, with starting young, you naturally just get to form those relationships with other athletes, with the partners, with people who are coming to support you, so you want to come back because your friends are there. You get used to being active. It's not something that you have to push yourself through necessarily. We still are very competitive and we always want to get better, but if you're already active, it's going to be just normal for you to stay active. And we are year-round, as TNT is as well, with a lot of their programs. So there's always something happening. Even if we're in the off-season, the state has something going on. We have something getting ready for the next season. There's always some kind of event going on that people can be active with us and continue to hone in on their skills, whether that's physical, emotional, being able to communicate with people, or just understanding that, they can get better, they can, compete as any other sport would do.
Absolutely. And I love that you talked about the relationships that kids build while they're playing sports as well. And I'm reminded of when the Sports and Society program was founded about 7 years ago, there was a survey that we did of kids about why do you like playing sports? Is it because you like to win? Is it because you like getting trophies or medals or hanging out with friends? And the number one reason that they love playing sports was because they got to have water breaks with their friends and hang out while they were drinking water. That was the most fun part for them, and building those relationships and sharing those experiences. And what I hear from both of you is that it is all about coming back to the kids. What is it that you want to do? What sport does that look like? What kind of opportunity? I'm curious from you, Ryan, about some of the human impact that you've seen from engaging kids in your program and getting them started early.
Yeah, I think gymnastics, the USAG, when you think about gymnastics, you probably think of the high flyers, the double backs, all of those. You were a gymnast. So all of those type of movements. But what gymnastics really is the basic of human development and learning to balance and to manipulate your body. And the relationship piece, I think, is huge. And Theodore Roosevelt said that it doesn't matter how much you know, and no one cares how much you know until they know you care. And to really develop those relationships and meet that child. My wife does trainings, she's here somewhere, does trainings, and she taught me, you got to meet them where they're at. You can't just talk to them because you're going to create a gap. And to really find that ability level and then scaffold that learning and that teaching to continue that progress throughout. And the only way that I've seen to be able to do that is to ask questions and to truly have empathy about who this person is, what are they liking, and seek to understand. We label individuals so often as having a disability, and it's truly about what their ability is and how do we continue to grow that ability level, whether it's behind normal, quote unquote, or ahead of normal. It's where is that ability level and how do we continue their progress? Because if a child or us as adults aren't challenged, we're going to get bored. We're going to stop doing it. It's going to become redundant. So it's our job as their role models to continue that progress and their development wherever they're at.
I love that you mentioned meeting kids where they're at, because this gets to a little bit what we were talking about when you touch on the word inclusivity. And for some folks, that means, okay, if we want to be inclusive, we're going to have a class over here for these folks, and then a team over here for these folks who are differently abled, and that's going to do it. And in some of the discussions we were having, you were talking about the impact of that and what inclusivity actually means. And Project Play, the program I work for, had Tim Shriver, the CEO of Special Olympics International. He had just an incredible discussion at our Project Play Summit about how we need to redefine or really look much more intently at what inclusivity means to us. And so I'm curious from you, Rachel, and then Ryan, if you had the opportunity just to kind of say, here's what it looks like, or here's ideally what we'd like to see it look like instead of separation. Talk a little bit about what, in your ideal world, that would look like and what you'd want to see.
Yeah, in our ideal world, we want people to be together. We don't want them, like you said, we're going to offer this for you, but you're going to be over here, and then all the typical people are going to be over here. We have to be together and work together and just celebrate the abilities. We just finished with team bocce and soccer, and so both of those sports are partner sports, which means people with disabilities and people without disabilities are on the same team. And so they play side by side, for the same goal. And so there's no difference between who's a partner and who's an athlete when they're on the field. They're all on the same team. They're all a wolf, they're all an eagle, and they all want to win. And so they have their training together. When we do our drills, it's all together. And so we really support that togetherness instead of, okay, the athletes will practice and the partners will watch. The partners are going to be doing the warm-ups. They have to run too. We all have to do it together because at the end, we're all in it together to get the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think inclusivity is community. And if you guys wouldn't mind joining a quick little activity with me, if you don't mind. So we all have a special need in a self, and one of my great coworkers, Nate Hendrickson, taught me this activity. So I want you to put your thumbs up. Okay? Put your thumbs down, put your pointers out. Put your thumbs up, pointers out. Thumbs up, pointers out. Got it? Okay, now put one thumb up, one pointer out. And switch. And switch, and switch, and switch, and switch, and switch, and switch, and switch. Okay? So, what am I doing? It's a simple activity that we all know what our thumbs are, know what our pointers are. Some of you I see are still practicing. Some of us look around and say, oh, they know how to do it, I don't. I'm going to shut down now. And what it really is, it puts us in a vulnerable state. And we ask children to be in a vulnerable state all the time. And when we talk about inclusivity, it's about meeting each other where they're at and understanding their ability level and working through that. We tend to look around and say, they can do it, I can't. And with physical activity, it's such a performance-driven activity where we can see, if I asked you to jump, I could see who could jump the highest, who even tried, who didn't. And we're comparing ourselves with our peers immediately on the spot. And when we look at inclusivity, it's about what can they do, not judging them, but understanding that's awesome. They can do that. Maybe it's a child in a wheelchair that's first time lifted their head up. That is a huge accomplishment, and we should celebrate that. And at TNT, the beauty is that you're going to see a child in a wheelchair jumping on a trampoline with a coach, Or you might see a child doing a double back, and understanding that they're both normal and they're both at their ability levels, and understanding that how do we take what's happening in those walls and with Special Olympics and continue to embrace that. And as a community, it's going to take all of us to understand that and continue to grow and not allow our vulnerability, even if I struggle, not allow that to affect us, but continue to push past it if that's something that we want to do, and encourage others in their track of life or activity level.
I'm definitely the person that shut down once I realized I couldn't do that, so I understand the sentiment. Yeah. And that also seems to touch on, it's not only the impetus of we need to have programs where kids can be in this environment, but also the adults, the coaches, the mentors, the people who are creating that environment, who are saying it's okay if you aren't able to do X, Y, and Z, or if you aren't able to do a double back right now. And we talked a little bit about the importance of relationships in that space and helping kids feel safe. And so, Rachel, I'm wondering how you've talked a little bit about recruiting volunteers and other partners, kind of getting them active. Curious how in Special Olympics you're working to have people who are able to build those relationships with kids, or able to make them feel safe and confident in a way that they can explore whatever their ability is and build on their strengths.
Sometimes all it takes is a high five, you know. We had, some people who are nervous to go out onto the court, and they know that they aren't as good as those people who are warming up before practice, who are spiking the ball over the volleyball nets already. They are nervous about just how to hold their hands to hit the ball, but we work with those people to make sure that they're comfortable, to make sure that they're happy with their skills and just grow. Any growth is good. And so we want them to be happy on the court. We don't want them to be scared. So sometimes, it's that high five. It's the showing people that you can be vulnerable too. Like you can't spike it over too, but neither can you, so it's okay. But making sure that they do have that support, and if they do have a moment where they're feeling sad, going over to comfort them or say, all right, well, when you're ready, you can come back out. We're still going to be practicing. But yeah, that support you need that, and it's priceless to have someone that cares about you. So it's the small things that really add up to that person being happy during the sport or during the practice, or just being there in that relationship.
And from all the conversations we've had, I can only imagine there's a lot of similar things that resonate in TNT, but anything to add about relationships and the importance of creating that safe environment from the adult perspective, or the coaches who are working with kids?
Another one of my coworkers tells me all the time that we're in the business of selling emotions and selling feelings. And that's really stuck out, that it's our job to make them feel good, and not to praise the stuff that they already can do, but to recognize the little accomplishments, and like you're saying, not comparing them to the next person, but teaching them to look within themselves and say, this was an accomplishment for you, look at what you did, not saying, giving necessarily the high fives to just the fastest runner or the highest jumper, but it's embracing all the wins, which is tough. It's tough to sit there with 5, 10, 15, 20 kids and identify where they were at and remember where they were at in a developmental state and recognize that was a victory for you. You decided to sit in our circle, which is a social win, that you decided to embrace that and come with our group. And that might be a win for a day, but that's a huge win when it comes to future life activities. And just embracing those and supporting them, and the positive reinforcement is huge.
Absolutely. Before we break for Q&A, I just want to take the opportunity to ask you one question about your programming and the power of physical activity and sports, because we know that we're all gathered here in Fargo for a reason. There's some incredible opportunities that you and the other panelists have for people to get involved, to be inspired by some new and innovative ideas and push towards solutions. And so before we break for Q&A, I'm curious about one message or key point you would want to leave people with about the power of play and sport and physical activity to transform the world that we're living in and to transform your lives and the lives of kids you work with.
I think the most important thing for Special Olympics is to remember that they're people just like us. They love sports just like us. They are trying their hardest. We put on a lot of time to have all of our athletes grow in whatever way that they can grow. And it's important for us to celebrate, those small things that they've accomplished and to recognize that now this person is coming out and they're happy and they wouldn't have gotten there without all of the support. It's everybody that puts that effort into everyone, and we all work together, and happiness and physical fitness and that feeling of belonging all come from working together.
Yeah. And I would agree. I think physical activity is one piece of the puzzle. We have our cognitive health, our emotional health, our social health, and it takes all of us to make a change in a child's life. We're seeing many different things in the school systems with behavioral and mental health. Medical providers are asking, we're the reactive, we need proactive, and really coming together to identify what can we do as a community to raise the children that we have and to continue their journey to become great citizens of Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo area. And if you want to see a great competition, little plug for TNT, this Sunday at noon at the Shack at NDSU, we're doing our Fargo Mania competition, which is a CrossFit-style competition for adults with special needs that have been training for the past 8 weeks. And all the activities are modified to their levels. And I'm just like the Special Olympics, to see the smiles on these guys' and gals' faces when they're accomplishing things, it's unbelievable. And just to be a part of it is so inspiring. And if you want to, 12 o'clock, Shack, be there Sunday.
A lot of our athletes are there too.
Yes.
So we're together.
We are together. We're both working in different aspects.
There you go. Maybe I'll move my flight. Stay on. Great. Well, with that, we have time for 2 questions from our audience. And I'm going to ask my mic runners are going to help out. If you have any questions for our panelists, I think we have time for 2, ready and willing. Otherwise, we're free to keep talking.
Hi, I think our community has a lot of people homeschooled. Is there a way to reach out? My son used to be involved in Special Olympics years ago, and I was so struck by one family. This mother homeschooled all 6 of her children, and all of them were partners in Special Olympics. That was their physical education program. Okay. And I was just curious if there's a way to get to the homeschool community en masse and bring them into partnership programs, whether, I don't know if TNT uses volunteers, but certainly Special Olympics for those partner sports.
Yeah, we do a lot of outreach, whether that's we do a lot of it at college fairs, but we do go to high schools. I speak at high school events. But yeah, we reach out, we put our name out there. Sometimes people reach out to us and ask, hey, we have some people who can help. How do we help? Where do we start? And so that's something we do a lot of, just looking always for new people to help, because people are always leaving, people are always coming. A lot of people stay for a long time, but we do try to get our name out. And I recruited someone, I was at Burger King, and they saw my sweatshirt, and they signed up to help at one of our tournaments. So sometimes it's as easy as that, just talking to someone. So we do try to reach out for a lot of people, but my info, if you just Google Special Olympics North Dakota, it's right there. You can send me an email, and I can get you all the info you need.
And on the physical activity side, if you're looking for activity for them to complete their physical education components, at TNT we are starting we're starting with open gyms for homeschool individuals to bring their children of all abilities to TNT, that we can start creating a physical activity or physical education curriculum based in our environment. So that is starting up in the next couple weeks. We just reached out to some of the homeschool, I don't know if co-op is the right word, but organizations to get the word out to allow children that are home during the day to come and have the same opportunity and to get a physical experience that they may not get in a home setting or even in a gymnasium setting.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, you spoke at the beginning about an ecosystem that really surrounds sports and play, and I was wondering if you could talk about really specific things to the Fargo-Moorhead community that you see impacting your organizations and also the students and adults that you work with.
For us at TNT, we work very closely with school districts on multiple different levels, whether it's training paraprofessionals or having the students with special needs, whether it's a physical need or a cognitive, emotional need, that come to TNT to receive physical education. We're working with hospitals to align our curriculum to milestones of child development so that our curriculum that we're teaching is mirroring the recommendations that pediatric nurses and doctors are providing. And I think it's really working with local colleges. We're very fortunate in Fargo-Moorhead that we have 3 large campuses that all have human development, phy-ed, education, and working with them to get their students into TNT. We're doing some research with University of Jamestown Physical Therapy and University of Mary's occupational therapy programs. There's a lot going on, and I think the more that we can continue to stir the pot and continue to find what's working and how can we change, how can they change, how do we continue to adapt, because the children are going to continue to adapt. We're more complacent with who we are, and they're going to keep evolving. There's a lot of, the children are changing. The children don't know any different. They're growing up. They're growing up based on what we do. And continuing to evolve our curriculum and what we do and how we embrace the community is a start, I think. And beginning our relationship with Special Olympics and trying to work more closely with how do we complement each other with seasons and activities.
Yeah, and then along that, another way to look at an ecosystem is that person and then the people who surround them. So the person and their families. Families are super involved with our programs too. They're the ones who bring their athletes. They're the ones who, come to all the competitions, who help raise money. And then there's, the schools. We have schools that are continually helping out with us. We have park districts that, give us really great facilities to use. We have, so many relationships with so many different agencies and companies that have been a part of Special Olympics for, decades. And I don't see that ending anytime soon. And we continually get new people, but we have those strong ties to the people who continue to support us, and we continue to grow with them.
There's no doubt in my mind that there's incredibly strong ecosystem here in the Fargo-Moorhead area. So thank you both so much for being part of this panel. Please join me in thanking our panelists.